For the first time on British television, The Hit, starring Tim Roth, Terence Stamp and John Hurt. The assassins have to deliver their enigmatic victim to Paris. But who is taking who for a ride?
All right, I want to know.
Know what?
You've had something going from the start.
I'm not scared.
You've got to be.
Let's do him here.
A straightforward hit becomes a tense and twisted battle. Monday at 9:30 on ITV, The Hit. It'll get to you.
Every time someone points a camera at you, say Truprint and smile.
Truprint?
Truprint.
Truprint!
Use the new Truprint package for great colour prints, and you get a free film every time.
Truprint.
Truprint.
Free film every time.
Do.
Free film every time. Use Truprint, and you need never buy another film.
Back a bit, love.
Truprint. Free film every time.
When I was young, grown-ups were always offering me advice, and I'd think, yeah. Well, you know what I mean. Then I grew up and found that some of the advice was right, like about oil of Ulay. Every time I use it, my skin feels so fresh. But what's really surprising is oil of Ulay seems to disappear into my skin. So there's no greasiness left, just soft, smooth skin. Maybe it'll help me stay a little younger looking, too.
Chop, chop, busy, busy, work, work, bang, bang. Chop, chop, busy, busy, work, work, bang, bang. Chop, chop, busy, busy, work, work, bang, bang. Chop, chop, busy, busy, work, work, bang, bang.
In business, an encouraging phone call just to say thanks a lot can often really get things moving.
Chop, chop, busy, busy, work, work, bang, bang. Chop, chop, busy, busy, work, work.
For all business, great and small, make that call.
Pan Am Fly Drive now give up to 3 weeks free car hire in California and Florida. See your travel agent or just call Pan Am on 01200 0200.
The wireless invented by Marconi, manufactured by Philips.
It's the absolutely marvellous compact cassette invented by Philips. It's that... And Philips come up with this thing called compact disc. Sounds amazing.
Now here's a real breakthrough. A complete compact disc system with gramophone, stereo wireless, twin cassettes and compact disc.
For around £330. The FCD 562. Another sensation from Philips.
The more I see you, the more I want you. Somehow this feeling just grows and grows. I know the only one for me can only be you. My arms won't breathe.
The Peugeot 205, a great little car. Whichever way you look at it.
Peugeot, the lion goes from strength to strength.
Buy a new cooker from British Gas now, and you can start cooking at once. But you don't have to pay anything for your cooker for months. Included in the price are delivery and fitting, and there's a trade-in of up to £65 for your old gas cooker. So you can enjoy your new cooker straight away without paying a penny until next September. British Gas Southwestern. Cook now, pay later.
Do it in your own home. Page Oracle 580 and choose a holiday from all the bargains. Whenever you want the full holiday picture, page your Oracle.
As the Westland affair continues to dominate the headlines, people are asking, why doesn't John Cole start reading the newspapers again? Perhaps then I'd also know that Spitting Image is back, featuring incisive comment, political analysis, and of course plenty of gratuitous physical violence.
Don't forget 10:30, the South Bank Show. But first we go to the studios of ITN for the latest international and national news.
More
4 police homes attacked in Ulster, 2 are burnt out. King says we'll send more troops to back the RUC if need be. Sogat's Brenda Dean rejects Murdoch's peace offering. And England manager to investigate Botham sex and drugs accusations. Good evening. As Ulster loyalists step up their attacks on the police, the government says it's ready to send in more troops to back the RUC. The Northern Ireland Secretary, Mr. Tom King, says the Anglo-Irish agreement stays. There will be no giving in to terrorism. And more troops will be sent if necessary. 2 police homes were completely gutted in the latest round of stonings and petrol bombings. There have now been more than 100 attacks on police in the current loyalist campaign, 16 last night. The latest violence covered the eastern part of the province, Ballymena, Carrickfergus, Greenisland and Newton Ards, with the worst attacks in Protestant areas of Belfast.
Only yesterday, this was the home of a policeman who's lived in this area for 50 years. He's been petrol bombed before, but his request to move because of this threat has been refused, and his appeal against that turned down. After last night's attack, he came back somewhat stunned, but not wholly surprised.
I was sitting watching TV and petrol bomb comes through the window, and inside 10 minutes the house was just an inferno. That was about it, you know. Only thing you can be thankful for, there was nobody in it, only myself, you know. I just packed my daughter off for the weekend, sort of anticipating something like this, you know. You thought it would happen? Oh, I did. This is a reward for living here. I've lived in this area for 50 years, and this is what your neighbours will do to you, you know. So. You think it was people from round here? Oh, there's no doubt about it. No doubt about it at all. You know? I came through and hit that far wall and immediately ignited the door. All that whole side and just right up. And I had a fire extinguisher in the hall, anticipating something like this happening, but the door was in flames and I couldn't get out through. As I say, I've lost my faith too a bit. Anyhow, the boys that did it, you know, I was going to say they'll have their conscience to live with, but the same boys probably hasn't got a conscience, you know. So I'll not bother them. They probably went home last night. I hope they got more sleep than I did, you know. Still have a job, you know, to do. I always thought I did it without, as they say, without fear or favour, but obviously not to everybody's satisfaction.
He's just one of over 70 policemen who've been attacked in their homes over the past month, and who, night after night, are now facing abuse while they're on duty in Protestant areas. These attacks aren't too serious in themselves, but they do create an atmosphere which can encourage a much higher level of violence. This afternoon, Minister Nicholas Scott said the situation could get worse.
This started off, I believe, in a sense as a random effort of localised hooliganism. My worry now is it may be developing a momentum and a pattern of its own, and perhaps even more sinister forces may be involved in organising it. If that's true, then I'm confident the police in quick time will get the support of the community outside and will be able to move against those responsible.
This was the other police home petrol bombed last night. With this happening in Protestant areas, the police feel moving home won't solve the long-term problem. As one said today, we'll become a tribe of nomads. Desmond Hamill, ITN, Belfast.
The Northern Ireland Secretary, Mr. Tom King, gave his response to the Loyalist attacks in an independent television interview. He again urged Unionist leaders to take part in new talks with the government, and he said extra troops might be needed.
Well, I certainly hope that the troops do not have to be diverted in any serious way from their vital work in the defeat of terrorism. It would be quite appalling.
But they could be, couldn't they?
Well, there are troops, of course, available in reserve at Portadown against the worst of the marches. There may need to be extra support, but we shall work as a team. We shall do all we can where it's necessary. If requests are made to me, I shall be anxious to see what help can be given.
The leader of the print union, Sogat 82, Brenda Dean, today dismissed the offer by Mr. Rupert Murdoch to give his old London printing plant to sacked newspaper workers. She said it was no solution. But Mr. Tony Dubbins, the leader of the NGA, said his union would give serious consideration to the offer as part of a wider deal. Mr. Norman Willis, the TUC General Secretary, told a rally of 5,000 trade unionists that Mr. Murdoch was using Rambo rules and rich man's justice.
Divisive, distracting attention from the issue of the 6,000 sacked workers. TUC General Secretary Norman Willis got a hostile reception from a small section of the crowd when he said Mr. Murdoch had made a serious offer which could form part of a wider settlement. But he said the fate of the sacked workers must come first.
No offer of a building or equipment for a labour movement paper can lessen our obligation to the sacked workers. Much as the labour movement wants its own paper, much as this dispute shows we need one, our priority is to people and not to property.
The muted response to Mr. Willis was in marked contrast to the rapturous welcome for SOGAT General Secretary Brenda Dean. The Ulster print works wouldn't settle the dispute.
There is no way any offer can be used at the expense of our membership, and we won't allow that to happen. The offer is no solution to this dispute. You cannot play monopoly with people's lives.
At the News International plant in East London, a handful of employees watched the march arrive and listened at a safe distance to their angry insults. Tonight, the remaining pickets were urged to turn up in force and stop the lorries.
I think we've got to work towards a really massive picket outside this plant.
But with the trucks rolling out, it's unlikely Mr. Murdoch will be in a hurry to improve his offer. Mark Webster, ITN, Wapping.
Apologise for the loss of sound at the top of that report from Mark Webster. The wife of the murdered publican Michael Joannou was still being questioned tonight by detectives at a police station in Surrey. Her husband was found strangled on the lawn of their home at Thames Ditton last Tuesday. Mrs. Joannou was taken to Kingston police station last night, and she's been held there throughout the day. Hours before her arrest, she'd broken down at a press conference about the murder.
No one you can think of who might have had a motive for doing him any harm.
It's all right. When she was unable to answer questions from reporters, she was helped from the room by a woman detective. Common market finance ministers meeting in Holland have agreed to major currency changes within the European monetary system, known as the EMS. It's the biggest reshuffle of European currencies for 3 years. The French franc has been devalued by nearly 6% against the German mark. That should boost French exports. The pound isn't involved because Britain is not in the EMS. France's finance minister, Edouard Balladur, said after today's meeting that his country's new right-wing government could now go ahead with economic reforms, including the scrapping of price controls. Greek police said today that they still suspect the Lebanese woman, May Elias Mansour, who held a news conference in Tripoli this weekend to deny planting the bomb.
I did not do it.
Mrs. Mansour admitted to reporters that although she had nothing to do with the TWA blast, she would have planted the bomb if she'd been asked to. Los Angeles police have seized a record amount of cocaine worth $500 million. 4-foot-high stacks of the drug were put on display at a news conference. The haul weighed in at 1,700 pounds, making it the largest cocaine seizure ever made in California. Angola says it shot down a South African military transport plane as it was supplying war materials to UNITA anti-government rebels. They claim the plane came down in the Bai province, but South Africa has denied that any of their planes have been hit. Police in South Korea have clashed with anti-government protesters during a demonstration in Seoul. 10,000 protesters were at the rally calling for President Chun Doo-hwan to step down and hold new elections. President Chun is due to arrive in Britain tomorrow at the start of a tour of Europe. England's cricket manager has started his own investigation in the West Indies into the latest sex and drugs allegations against Ian Botham. Mr. Tony Brown says that there's no question at this stage of Botham being sent home. Botham's described the claims in some of today's papers as ridiculous. Earlier today, the Test and County Cricket Board Secretary, Mr. Donald Carr, left Heathrow for Trinidad. He wouldn't comment on the Botham story and said he's going to sort out problems surrounding another England player, Graham Gooch.
Controversy has chased Ian Botham the length of the Caribbean. This tour has turned out to be a personal nightmare, as newspaper after newspaper has criticised his cricket and challenged his behaviour. At times, he's been unable to control his frustration at the mounting pressure from the press box. More and more wearing the harassed and hunted look of a man uncertain who to trust. Undoubtedly, he feels caged by the constant attention he attracts. Ironically, he just finished his best test of the series with both bat and ball when the latest allegations over drugs and sex reached him in Port of Spain, once more leaving him the loneliest and most disconsolate of England's defeated cricketers. Botham spent today resting alone in his hotel room after a sleepless night on the phone to his lawyers and family back home. Before putting out the "Don't Disturb" sign, he told me he denied all the allegations. Meanwhile, manager Tony Brown and captain David Gower wrestle with the latest Botham worry.
Well, Ian is very upset and very annoyed about them and denies categorically everything that so far he's heard from this newspaper article, and the matter is in the hands of his legal advisor.
What's your involvement as tour manager?
If there is anything there at all which I feel warrants investigation from our side of things, well then I will do so. I've had no complaints made to me by anybody at all about any kind of behaviour on this tour.
But Botham's not the only problem as this ill-fated cricket tour crashes from crisis to crisis. Later tonight, Donald Carr, the Teston County Cricket Board Secretary, flies here to Port of Spain to talk to Graham Gooch, who's threatening not to play in the final test in Antigua because of criticism by the government there over his links with South Africa. Jeremy Thompson, ITN Sport in Trinidad.
And just a quick reminder that tomorrow's news at 10 is at 9. For tonight, good night.
As loyalist violence escalates against the Anglo-Irish agreement, one man is emerging as the hardest liner of them all. He's Peter Robinson, Ian Paisley's deputy. Robinson believes he can succeed where others have failed in turning Mrs. Thatcher. Last week he marched to the sound of drum beats. Soon, he says, Ulster may be marching to the sound of guns. That's the hard liner. World in Action tomorrow at 8:30.
Now look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Well, after a cold night with frost in places and possibly some icy patches at first in the morning, tomorrow will start bright and mostly dry. However, cloud will increase and more general rain will reach Wiltshire around the middle of the day and spread westwards to the remainder of the area during the afternoon. Well, the rain may be followed briefly by some sleet over the higher parts. The maximum temperature is expected to be around 7 degrees Celsius, that's 45 Fahrenheit. And the outlook for Tuesday, mostly cloudy with rain at times and also a bit windy. Stay with us for Spitting Image.
Right.
Golden Wonder. Pot noodle, pot rice, pot casserole.
Food.
Pots of flavour, pots of warmth, pots of goodness. Potted for you by Golden Wonder.
For unit trusts with a track record of good performance over the long term, there is a growing management group whose name you should never forget.
What the man from Del Monte knows about fruit, you can taste in our juice. Del Monte Pure Juice. Why don't you say yes to the best?
Do you know, when I was making that commercial, I was expecting Tamlin. So it must be nearly 9 years ago. Since then, I've had Amy, who's nearly 4, so I know what it's like to be a real working mum doing the real washing up. But during all that time, I've kept using Fairy Liquid. because I could see it was good at keeping the plates clean, and I believe the suds were kind to my hands. But you don't find out until much later, do you? Looking at them now, compared with what they were, I really can't tell the difference. When they sang hands that do dishes can feel soft as your face, they should have added, and they can stay that way.
With my green, very liquid.
First choice shoes. The coolest styles under the sun. Shoes and sandals to save a pretty penny in the sunlit days ahead. Your first choice for shoes at Crewis Road, Cardiff, Pyle Cross and the Swansea Enterprise Park.
Wednesday's a frenzy, Thursday's the worst day, Friday's great, 'cause I can hardly wait until the weekend. Here come the weekend. Here come the weekend.
Every Saturday, NatWest turns into SatWest. About 200 branches open up all Saturday morning. So whether you want to open an account, or talk about money matters, or a personal loan agreed on the spot.
Right you are, Mr. Baker. We'll credit the money to your account.
Thank you very much.
Come here this weekend. NatWest, the Action Bank.
Gold from St. Ivel. Half the fat and a buttery taste. Rolled into one.
If you want an excellent choice for your garden, come to Avon Associated Garden Centres at Burrington Combe, Burrington, Fonthill, Bitton and Whiteway, Bath.
The BBC would like to apologise for the fact that tonight's edition of That's Life was not broadcast. Unfortunately, Esther Ranson is still recovering from shock after a viewer sent her his penis because it looked like a carrot.